Frazier! Down goes Frazier!
Hey, what's up with it, fam? It's Hot Boxing Minute, your favorite pharmaceutical engineer, turned boxing analyst, back at you with that what? That uncut real, of course. As only I can bring it to you, there was quite a few fights this weekend. I don't think really any major fights that were going to appeal to, outside of the hardcore boxing mainstream or the hardcore boxing small stream, because it isn't the mainstream, but for boxing fans, it was enough to keep us content over the weekend. And there was some late breaking news and developments I want to talk about. This episode is going to cover a lot, not only the fights this weekend, but also the announcements coming up, some stuff with Canelo Alvarez, Deontay Wilder, Joshua Franco, all kind of stuff was going down this weekend. So first things first, the major title fight that occurred out there in Japan, it was Saturday morning at like 2 or 3 in the morning. They had the rematch between Joshua Franco and Kazuto Ioka. And for those of you who were lucky enough to catch that first fight, when was it? December of last year. In December, the thing about fights out there in Japan is they really don't like to broadcast it to outside carriers outside the country for some reason. So it's really hard to find a stream. So if you're lucky enough to find a stream, more power to you. For that first fight with Kazuto Ioka and Josh Franco, everyone pretty much on all of boxing Twitter and all the media people were using Mikey Garcia's Instagram feed, because Mikey Garcia was live on Instagram stories and he was broadcasting the fight, the entire fight from his phone ringside, because he was there in the corner with Josh Franco and of course his older brother Robert Garcia, who was the head trainer over there at Robert Garcia Boxing Academy. So they had this rematch and Mikey Garcia was not the one hosting it on his phone. It was on a stream. I managed to catch the replay of it, folks. I didn't even see the stream. Ain't nobody got time for that. If you go on YouTube just after big fights, you'll always find some version of the full fight. It might not be the most highest quality visuals, but you'll see it online before it gets taken down a few hours later. But I did get enough to see the replay of it. And regardless of what, it was a clear, wide, unanimous decision win in favor of Kazuto Ioka. And Kazuto Ioka essentially starched Joshua Franco. It was very different than the first fight. In the first fight, it was back and forth, toe-to-toe, really hard to gauge each round because each round was fought very close. It was Josh Franco pretty much leading the charge with Kazuto Ioka up against the ropes, but boxing very intelligently from his back on the ropes. And I actually had Kazuto Ioka. My prediction was for him to win that first fight. Turns out it was an awesome scrap. The draw was the right decision. It was really hard to judge. The second fight, not so much. This second fight was almost disastrous from the beginning. Kazuto Ioka failed a drug test after he got that draw with Josh Franco in December, but he only tested positive for marijuana, and marijuana is not an offense to which they can suspend you, or which they do suspend you out there in Japan. It's different, I think, over here, depending on the sanctioning body or what have you. But as far as I understand it, or as far as reporters were led to believe due to information leaks coming from the Robert Garcia camp, Robert Garcia and that camp were under the impression that Kazuto Ioka might be suspended so that fight not be going down. This is what they were saying after Joshua Franco missed weight. Joshua Franco weighed over 6 pounds heavier than the 115-pound super flyweight limit or junior bantamweight limit, whatever you want to say. The fight was for originally Joshua Franco's WBA super flyweight belt, the one that he had beat. Who did he get the belt off of? Let me see. Hold on here. It was, I believe it was a title. It was, yes, he got it off of Andrew Maloney, or he got the regular strap, and then, yeah, he got the regular strap, and he defended it a few times, and then he fought Kazuto Ioka and got the draw, right? And Kazuto Ioka was a WBO champion. He got the fight with Josh Franco, and Josh Franco missed weight. He missed weight by 6 pounds. I think I said that already. He missed weight by 6 pounds. He was stripped of his WBA super flyweight strap. So going into that fight, Kazuto Ioka had one of two options. He could either call off the fight himself because, fair enough, the guy weighs more than 5 pounds, 6 pounds, When those divisions are that small, that's 2 entire weight divisions. You know it's bad? You know you miss weight overseas when they give back the response to American media in kilograms, and it was something like 3 kilograms over. So that's considerable. That's considerable. Kazuto Ioka goes through with the fight, and he essentially starches Joshua Franco. So hats off to Kazuto Ioka for beating Joshua Franco. It was nice for a minute there. We had 2 major champions from San Antonio, Josh Franco and his brother Bam Rodriguez, but Josh Franco vacated the belt or was stripped of his belt for missing weight. Kazuto Ioka wins the WBA super flyweight strap, becoming a champion himself. And then Josh Franco announces that he's retiring. He lost that fight and he's retiring at 27 years old. And you can't do nothing but respect that. Hats off to Josh Franco. He cited mental health concerns. And it's really tricky in this day and age when you're dealing with mental health. You've got men on a whole who just have the toxic masculinity thing going, so they don't talk about feelings. You compound it with the boxing thing to make it even worse. So you're getting the most toxically masculine of the toxically masculine in a sport that's kind of seen as barbaric by many. And Joshua Franco, who has been an amazing fighter up until this recent loss where he missed weight on the scales, has stated he has concerns for his mental health and needs to take a break and retire from the game of boxing. And hats off to Joshua Franco for making the decision this young with all his mental faculties in check. And best of luck to him on any of his future endeavors. The boxing world will always welcome him with open arms, I'm sure, whether it be in a fighting capacity, which I don't see that happening at this point, maybe in a commentator capacity. Who knows? The futures is wide open for Joshua Franco at 27 years old. And Kazuto Ioka, Japan's only current 4-division champion. Let me check the rankings in that division right now. I believe he's in there with Hunto Nakatani, which is going to be a super fun fight. So let me see. Oh, he's got so many people in his. Oh, God. So who are the other belt holders? Yeah, buddy. So hats off to Kazuto Ioka. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame, folks. Make no mistake about that. Kazuto Ioka is a 4-division champion, the only 4-division champion from Japan, men. And he has fought some of the best of the best. He's one of the unofficial kings of that super flyweight division of this past era. He's fought, Sirisa Ketsuron Visai. He's fought Juan Francisco Estrada. He's been around the block and he's put in that work. The other champions in that division are Fernando Martinez with the IBF, Hunto Nakatani with the WBO, and of course Juan Francisco Estrada with the WBC. So Kazuto Ioka has a lot of options open for him at this point in his career. So hats off to that man. You always got to give the justice due where it's due. And, oh my goodness, let me get it right. He did not actually fight Juan Francisco Estrada or Sarisa Ketsuron Visai. My apologies, folks. He fought Kosai Tanaka, Donnie Nietes, McWilliams Arroyo, and Juan Carlos Reveco. So I don't want to get it mixed up or messed up. Sorry. For some reason, I was thinking like Carlos Cuadras in my head or his resume. But regardless of what, Kazuto Ioka has been on a tear his entire career. And I'm hoping that he fights Hunto Nakatani next, because that would be such an awesome blowout. But yeah, that's what's going on out there with the super flyweight division, which is easily one of the most exciting divisions in boxing. For those of you who have not been paying attention, let's go out there to Minnesota, in the land of Luis de Cubas and his son, who owns that facility, the Armory out there. Showtime PBC threw on an awesome card. No really big championship title fights on the line, but some great division clearing going on, especially in the middleweight division. The headline of the event was Carlos Adames versus Julian J. Rock Williams. Hats off to Carlos Adames. He got the stoppage over Julian J. Rock Williams. It was a 9th-round stoppage. Some might say it was premature. Julian Williams was taking a lot of damage. His coach, Stephen Breadman, stepped into the ring. He was cussing out everybody. He was upset. I don't know. I'm not against the stoppage. It probably could have gone a little bit longer, but when you think about Julian J. Rock Williams and his previous losses to guys like, he got knocked out by Jason Rosario. He had that fight against Vladimir Hernandez. And this is essentially his third loss out of his previous 4 fights. So Julian Williams has a lot of decisions to make as far as where he wants to go from this point in his career. It doesn't look like he has the same punch resistance as he did when he was younger. But either way, you've got Carlos Adames, who is having, I believe, it's the 4th stoppage out of his previous 5 wins. And he's got stoppage wins over now Julian J. Rock Williams. Before this, he beat Juan Macias Montiel, got a stoppage, and that's the guy that took Jermall Charlo the whole distance. Now, Carlos Adames has the WBC interim title, so he's next in line for Jermall. And we all know Jermall Charlo is likely going to vacate that belt to move up to fight Canelo Alvarez for the 168 Undisputed Championship. So we might likely see Carlos Adames get elevated to full WBC middleweight champion. Maybe then we can get somebody to fight the supposed boogeyman of the division, Janibek Alamkhanali. But it is what it is, folks. Interesting fight. Julian J. Rock Williams was hanging in there, but it just really looked like Carlos Adames was in control the whole fight. I think you could have given Julian J. Rock Williams a few of the rounds in there. He did very well once he got really compact and fought on the inside with Adames, but when that stoppage happened at the 9th, Julian Williams was catching a lot of shots. And it's crazy because, Julian Williams does have that win over Jarrett Hurd, back when Jarrett Hurd was the man of the division, and there was a time when Julian Williams was the unified middleweight champion, but I think those days might be far behind Julian Williams now. I don't know. His record now is 28-3-1. He's got some decisions to make, but the co-main or the undercard, I believe, to that one, I think it was the undercard, Erickson Lubin, Luis Cuba Arias. This was a battle both of them needed to win badly. Erickson Lubin, that was coming off that nasty knockout loss to Sebastian Fundora, or the stoppage, 14 months ago. It took his time to heal. Cuba Arias, needed to get that win. The Erickson Lubin versus Cuba Arias is very interesting because both of those fighters kind of are in a position where they both really need to get that win. And I know this sounds like kind of cliche to say, but let me check where Luis Arias was. I still remember Luis Arias from those videos back in the day when he was going through the issues with Mayweather Promotions, but he's lost to Vaughn Alexander by split decision, Luke Keeler, and of course he lost to Danny Jacobs. But he's a solid guy. He's kind of dropped 3 of his last 4. He is currently 20-4, 9 knockouts. So I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do from here on out. But so Erickson Lubin and Luis Cuba Arias went into this fight, and they both needed that win. I think more so for Luis Arias. He now drops to, I don't remember, but he has 4 losses on his record. I think he's 20-3 now. No, 20-4. Let's see. He's 20-4. Okay. So an absolute fight. So Erickson Lubin, 14 months ago, had that ridiculous stoppage at the hands of Sebastian Fundora. His face was busted up pretty nasty. He took his time. So he had those 2 losses on his record. That nasty loss to Charlo and, of course, Sebastian Fundora. But Erickson Lubin is still one of the best technicians in the 154-pound division. He was fighting Luis Arias, who himself needed to get a win badly. Luis Arias, the former Mayweather Promotions fighter, still signed to PBC, but he drops to 20-4. And Erickson Lubin essentially put on a clinic with his jab. It was a masterful performance. And I would safely say he kind of dominated that fight, even though Luis Arias was there in spurts. But Erickson Lubin walks away. He gets the stoppage in the 5th round. And I guess it was a knockout. Luis Arias got up right when the referee counted to 9. And there was a little bit of controversy saying maybe the referee should have gave Luis Arias the benefit of the doubt. But I say this, folks, when it comes to the 10-count stoppage, the latest you want to get up is 8. He got up at 9. He got counted out. Knockout win for Erickson Lubin. The sky's the limit for Erickson Lubin right now. I think he's back in the win column, so he could potentially have a rematch with Sebastian Fundora. He's in the same rankings with Sergio Garcia and Israel Madrimov. So he's got some potential fights out there hold on. Let me get the where he stands. Not Sir. Is it Sergio Garcia? I believe it's Sergio Garcia. Let me get the names correct here, because I don't want to throw you guys off. Hold on. Okay. I cannot scroll this correct to save my damn life, y'all. Okay. So Erickson Lubin coming off of that 14-month layoff after getting that vicious stoppage at the hands of Sebastian Fundora. This past weekend got that win over Luis Arias, a 5th-round knockout. Luis Arias got up at the count of 9. Once the referee hit 9, he got up. Probably could have kept going. Either way, you don't get up any later than 8 seconds. So that was a win that obviously Erickson Lubin needed. For those of you that don't know, Erickson Lubin was one of the best amateurs of his whole era when he was coming up in the amateur system in the early 2010s. I think he took on a little bit too much too early in his career when he fought Charlo and got that nasty, vicious knockout. And then, of course, that stoppage at the hands of Sebastian Fundora. But now that Erickson Lubin is back in the win column, he's in an interesting position in the WBC rankings. He's sandwiched right there in between Sergio Garcia and Israel Madrimov. He can fight either one of them two, run it back with Sebastian Fundora. Who knows? I think Erickson Lubin is easily one of the most talented fighters in the 154-pound division. Maybe his chin is questionable. I don't know. It seemed to hold up just fine against Luis Arias. But when push comes to shove, I do believe that Erickson Lubin has the skill set and the ability to become a champion in that 154-pound division. Maybe after Jermall Charlo decides to move up and vacate those straps, if he ever does. But congratulations to Erickson Lubin on getting that win. What did you folks think about Erickson Lubin's performance against Luis Cuba Arias this weekend out there in Minnesota? Let me know what you thought about that performance and how you think Erickson Lubin stands up or stacks up against the other heavy hitters in that 154-pound division. Let me know in the comments section, y'all. Let's chop this one up. And I believe, okay. So those were the two big cards that were on that one. I want to talk about what was going on out there in Madison Square Garden at the Hulu Center. We had Edgar Berlanga against Jason Quigley out there in Madison Square Garden, Hulu Center, the small room. And for the life of me, folks, I do not know why Edgar Berlanga is still giving headliners. No knock to Edgar Berlanga, but it's very clear that Edgar Berlanga needs time to develop. I think he still has a lot of raw potential. He's 21-0. Ever since that knockout streak ended, he has not looked really spectacular. He didn't get the knockout win over Jason Quigley, but he did get the clear unanimous decision win. He knocked him down in the 3rd round, the 5th round, and they got 2 knockdowns in the 12th, which kind of sealed the deal for him against Jason Quigley. But Quigley was very much a live dog for the entirety of the fight. So I don't know where that places Edgar Berlanga. Clearly, there's a lot of chatter and people don't like him online. I'm just keeping it real. I don't, particularly want to dismiss or be dismissive of what Edgar Berlanga can be capable of. But I think the pressure of him being a headliner and so much pressure on his name is affecting his ability to learn at his own pace. But hey, that's just my 2 cents in it. After the fight, he called out Jaime Munguia. And woo, that would be an interesting fight. I know it would pack an arena at least because you would get the Puerto Rican contingency with Edgar Berlanga. And of course, Jaime Munguia, who's a known ticket seller. The Mexicans will come to support Jaime Munguia. How do you think Jaime Munguia and Edgar Berlanga would play out if that fight were to actually go down next? Let me know in the comments section, y'all, what you think about that one. I don't think Edgar Berlanga really does very well against a guy like Jaime Munguia. I think he might be biting off a little more than he can chew. He is in such an interesting position right now because Edgar Berlanga, I believe, signed a contract with Matchroom despite Matchroom's limited offerings in the super middleweight division because I believe he was thinking he would get that fight with Canelo Alvarez. I also believe that Eddie Hearn was under the impression that Canelo Alvarez might re-sign with Matchroom, but truth be told, there was really nobody in Eddie Hearn's stable that was enticing for Canelo Alvarez, except maybe Dimitri Bivol, but Dimitri Bivol didn't want to play ball with the A side, so here we are. Edgar Berlanga stuck on an island by himself with Matchroom, and now Eddie Hearn has no major premier stars, so he had an awesome year in 2022, but he's looking at 2023 like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this year. Meanwhile, PBC has been crushing it with their schedule, and Edgar Berlanga is left there on an island. It looks like he's going to be on the the European Fighter Tour for the foreseeable future, because I don't think it's going to be a smart idea to stick him in there with Jaime Munguia, because Jaime Munguia will wreck that dude. That's what I think will happen. But that's just my opinion. Yeah, that's about how that goes. And as far as rumors in the boxing world, just in case you guys missed it, Canelo Alvarez has officially signed a 3-fight deal with PBC in excess of $100 million. I'm sure when all is said and done, it will be something in the ballpark of $150 million to $150 million plus. You know he's a cash cow. He'll get the purse, he'll get the gate fees, he'll get the pay-per-views. The first fight is going to be Jermall Charlo. I think most of us have been hearing the grumblings from our connections and our sources around the boxing world. Jermall Charlo, and then the second and third fight, that's up for grabs. They've got a fun little stable out there at the PBC. They've got David Benavidez, David Morrell, Demetrius Andrade. Of course, they got Caleb Plant. So I believe it's going to be David Benavidez after he fights David Morrell as the second fight for Canelo Alvarez coming up next May of 2024. And as strange as it sounds, I think it's going to be Errol Spence to finalize that Canelo 3-fight deal with the PBC at the end of 2024 after Errol Spence Jr. has run the gauntlet with Terrence Bud Crawford, depending on what shape Errol Spence comes out of that fight series with Terrence Bud Crawford. But interesting movements going on. Now it's Canelo and the PBC playing ball on the same team. And you know, obviously, the PBC fanboys have been very critical of Canelo Alvarez. I wish it wasn't like that with boxing fandom, but it is what it is. Regardless, everyone's on the same team. He's going to have to fight the quote-unquote slick black fighters that everyone says he's avoiding. And that's what's going on with Canelo. And I think it went over the Josh Franco news. Oh, Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz Jr. have been going back and forth out there on Twitter, actually on Instagram. So the day before yesterday, Andy Ruiz Jr. posted on his story that him and his people are working out the final details of the contract negotiations with Deontay Wilder. And then Deontay Wilder posted on his Instagram today a video, words of encouragement, so to say, to tell Andy Ruiz Jr. to not listen to his people, to make the right decision to give this fight for the fans. So cross our fingers. It looks like we're going to get that fight between Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz Jr., and it should be sometime within the next 2 to 3 months, because there have been grumblings about a super fight between Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua, and another main card event with Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury out there in Saudi Arabia with all that Prince Khalid Saudi Arabian oil money. So lots of interesting things going on in boxing. This month of July is going to be jam-packed with fights. So stay tuned, folks. We're going to cover it all. This is Hot Boxing Minute. Hit follow if you haven't already done so. Any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them in the comment box. Hit that like button. This is the future of boxing analysis on YouTube and TikTok, folks. Hot Boxing Minute. Peace.